Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Sunday, July the 30th, 2023. Today I want to look at a load of charts. I don't want to spend particularly long on each chart, but my broad theme, I suppose, is going to be Ukraine, and I just want to look at some of the people who are involved in the conflict on NATO's side. For example, you've got Zelensky, of course, president of Ukraine, and then there is Victoria Nuland, she's just got promotion and she's now acting Deputy Secretary of State, I think. Does that mean she's immediately under Antony Blinken? And that's another chart I want to look at. And I want to look at the chart of NATO, quick look at the chart of the United States. One of my commenters wanted me to look at Lindsey Graham's horoscope. He is the senator from South Carolina who said something about wanting to kill Russians. I think, did he say that it was a good investment to buy stuff, military technology that can kill Russians? I also General Siersky. He's a Ukrainian general who actually he was born in Russia, and he's now, I think, frantically trying to retake Bakhmut or something like that. So we have a date of birth. So I thought I'd look at that chart. So I just want to get a broad idea about this, and I want to specifically talk about this point 0 Virgo. 0 Virgo in relationship to the war in Ukraine, I think could be important. And this 0 Virgo point may indicate when we're going to see a really decisive change in the conflict. But it's all going to be a bit chaotic. Just a chart here, chart there, and I'm hoping we're going to make a bit more sense of what's going on in Ukraine. But before I do that, I want to look at what's going on today in the sky. Today being Sunday, July the 30th, 2023. So let's see what's going on. Now there on the top right is Victoria Nuland. I really want to say, I suppose, quite a lot about her chart. Every time I look at her chart, I see something new. It's an important chart. Now, as far as today's astrology is concerned, you will notice that the moon is now in Capricorn. And it is making a trine aspect to Mercury and Mars. So it might be a Sunday, it might be a day when, day of rest. But, for many of us, we're going to be thinking about money and business and how to make money. And that's fine. I mean, we've got all this stuff in earth signs. You've got moon in Capricorn, Mercury in Virgo, Mars in Virgo, and Jupiter in Taurus. So we've almost got a grand trine in Earth. So it's okay to think about business. If you have a chance to have business negotiations or conversations, then go ahead. Doesn't matter if it's Sunday. Doesn't matter if it's supposed to be a day of rest, unless of course you're particularly religious and your Sundays are sacred. So it's a good day to talk about money, good day to talk about business, good day to make new contacts. I mean, yesterday was quite a good day for making contacts, but today those contacts, particularly of a business nature. If it's not business, then we can maybe organize ourselves. So if we've had recent chaos in our lives, all of this stuff in Earth gives us a chance to anchor ourselves, to find some ground under our feet, and to sort out whatever mess might be in our life, and as a result, we can really create some favourable changes, which are going to help us make progress next week, particularly if we're working next week. So I think that's good. The only major problem I see today is the fact that the planet Venus, where's Venus? Venus is at 27-28 Leo, is exactly 150 degrees from Neptune. So that's a quincunx aspect. So when you've got a quincunx aspect, there's an unease. So, Venus is a planet of relationships. We want to relate to people. Neptune is quite an emotional influence, but it's quite a deceptive influence. So in terms of relationships, we might just misunderstand what's going on. We might fall for someone's lies. So if someone's trying to sell us something, not just talking about romantic relationships, any one-to-one contact, we might be misled. So when dealing with people, particularly at a one-to-one level, we do have to be extra careful. At the same time, planet Mercury is aspecting the Mars-Uranus midpoint, so we have to be careful what we say. The things we say could cause a lot of damage. I suppose in the worst case scenario, the things we say could cause a fight. So if you have a confrontation with someone, road rage or whatever, you might want to, use insulting language because, you might feel justified in using insulting language, but it's not a good idea because at the moment, the wrong words could cause something of a conflagration. And like yesterday, Hades, the hypothetical planet Hades, continues to be conjunct the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. Mars-Jupiter is about energy, having a lot of energy. And as I said yesterday, we must be careful that we don't throw our energy into the wrong areas. Something like, sleaze, crime, all that kind of stuff. Being attracted to criminal elements, being attracted to things that are slightly shady, or maybe even very shady. We've got to resist that, and particularly perhaps if we're going to parties. I mean, it's Sunday, so Sunday is usually a more relaxed day from Saturday. Less opportunities to get oneself into trouble, but just bear that in mind. Now, as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, here goes. Here are my forecasts for today, which is Sunday, July the 30th, 2023. Aries, a Sunday for some, a normal working day for others. And with the moon moving into Capricorn, you want to get things done. So you might not make for relaxing company. On the other hand, you will be able to cover a lot of ground, and by having a weekend clear out, you'll be setting the stage for solid progress next week. Taurus, your mind is wandering and considering new possibilities, which is great, provided your overall approach is very grounded. Consider what is possible and don't chase fantasies. I say this because Venus, your ruler, is making an 150-degree aspect to Neptune, and this could lead you astray. And perhaps you'll be led astray by some of your less reliable friends. Gemini, it's often easy to get into something, but not so easy to get out of it. And today, this might be an issue. You might feel that you can abruptly cut your ties with a difficult situation, but that isn't really the case. It's a time when you have to search your soul and ask yourself what the right thing to do is. Soon enough, the answer will be obvious, and perhaps you'll then be able to detach yourself from something that has been, really quite difficult to get rid of. Cancer. With the moon moving through Capricorn, your opposite sign, the emphasis is very much on other people, and in most cases it will be them calling the shots. But make sure you establish your boundaries and don't tolerate careless and unstable behavior. A long and serious conversation can open many doors. Leo, contacts with other people appear very normal, but they could take an unexpected turn, perhaps because someone is living under a delusion. So make sure that you know what's going on all the time. And remember that order is very fragile. You think everything's in place, but maybe it's not. Virgo. You can put the Virgo stereotypes to bed by being an exciting and fun person who can be the life and soul of the party. You can step away from your normal Virgoan persona, and you can help friends and family to enjoy themselves to the full. Yet Mercury, ruler of Virgo, is aspecting the Mars-Uranus midpoint. However careful you are, there are times when you are accident-prone, breaking and antagonizing without fully appreciating the impact you are having. Libra, there's a possibility that you're confused by whatever is going on around you. You try to make sense of it all, but there's still something that doesn't make sense. Perhaps you need to accept the situation rather than go round and round in circles. And for best results, you'll spend Sunday at home. Scorpio. Now is the time to get your message across. It's not about drama and exaggeration. It's about sticking to the basics and not allowing yourself to be swept off course. And bear in mind that a lot of people don't know what they're doing, so it's not a good day for trusting people to do the right thing. Sagittarius. There is more emphasis on money than there has been of late. It's a good thing. You have a chance to get things together and to organize your own personal finances. If you're working today, particularly if you're a freelancer or self-employed, your dynamic but well-considered actions could really move you forward. Capricorn, in some respects, you're quite selfish today, but I wouldn't worry about it. You have interests that need to be protected, and if you don't look after them, no one else will. But once you're feeling confident and secure, be ready to step into the unknown. You need to see the whole world in all its magnificence and not be trapped by a narrow focus. Aquarius, there is pressure to go to different places. Maybe home, church, parties, gardens, whatever. Yet it's not what you want to do. So if you have got your own plans, then you should probably pursue them. You might feel guilty about your isolationism, but right now it's important that you put your own interests first. Pisces, it's all about having the right friends, and with the moon moving into Capricorn, you can make contact with people who are genuinely helpful and, most importantly, are reliable. And for your part, make sure that you don't sabotage the situation by yourself being unreliable or by behaving in a flaky way. So that's the 12 signs. So I'm now going to do a quick I Ching for today. So the first hexagram I got when I threw the coins, asking what is Sunday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel, was hexagram 64, before completion. This represents like a situation where we've nearly finished with something. We've got a lot of things in place, but we're not quite there. We just have to make that final push to complete the task. And in this final push, we have, the greatest danger. It's at this stage that we can make mistakes. Perhaps we'll lose our focus, we won't pay attention, and we will fall into the metaphorical water. So, yeah, you really need focus. And we also need to make sure that we're getting the support we need. Some people are not being helpful, and it does seem that we may have to take strong action in order for the path to final completion to be cleared. So if you're being messed around by people, you can't just let them get on with it. You have to be very firm. Now, this hexagram 64, it changes. It changes to hexagram 4, youthful folly. Now, youthful folly in the I Ching is often a sign that you shouldn't have asked the question. It's just saying, but the I Ching is just saying, don't waste my time. So we need to bear that in mind. I mean, is it saying that me asking this I Ching here is just something quite flippant that I shouldn't be doing? Or is it saying that actually we already know the answer? Whatever this thing bothering us, maybe we just know the answer. But I think how I would read it is as a warning. We're nearly finished with something. We know what we have to do to finish it, yet at the last moment, there's a big danger, but we're completely stupid and we just blow the whole thing. So if you're involved in a project, particularly if it's very near the end, those last steps have to be taken very, very carefully. And you must really make sure that you don't do something stupid, because if you do something stupid, you could spoil everything. And spoiling it at the last moment would be a great shame. So what I'm going to do now is talk about Ukraine, and I'm going to talk about it in terms of a number of charts. Here we go. So the first chart I want to look at is, Victoria Nuland's chart. As I said, she has just been promoted to acting deputy secretary. So, when we look at her chart, this is starting to tell us something about American foreign policy. She has a particular view of the world. In 2014, she was in Ukraine, and she played a part in overthrowing an elected government and ushering in a government that was much more pro-Western and anti-Russian. And as a result of this action, you got really a civil war in Ukraine. You got separatists, wanted independence for Donetsk and Luhansk. The Russians annexed Crimea. And so this whole war in Ukraine really started in 2014. That's when people started getting killed in really very large numbers. And so Victoria Nuland was part of the problem. And she made this, infamous comment over the phone, fuck the EU. she perhaps, I think, believed that the EU were too much sitting on the fence, that they perhaps couldn't fully be trusted. They were perhaps too reliant on Moscow, too divided, and so she was giving her opinion in a very aggressive way, and I think the aggression, part of the aggression, can be seen by the fact that she has the Aries point on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, which I talked about at the beginning of a video. This Aries on the Mars-Saturn it's a real problem, and it's about someone who is able to cause a huge amount of destruction through their actions. Now, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he also has Aries on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. General Siersky, number one or number two, I think, general in Ukraine, he has Aries on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. People who have the opportunity to get involved in a war and cause a huge amount of deaths. That's what happens if you've got Aries on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. If you get involved in a war, if you egg people on, you're kind of responsible for it, aren't you? Now, the question is, how is Victoria Nuland able to be so influential? I think part of it is the fact that she links with the United States horoscope. The United States is a Cancer with the moon in Aquarius. Victoria Nuland is a Cancer with the moon in Aquarius. So she's able to, she seems to be a sort of patriotic American who can sort of get into the system and become part of the system and influence the system. And that sort of has an echo, kind of, with Princess Diana, because Victoria Nuland was born on July the 1st, 1961, and Princess Diana was also born on July the 1st, 1961. You could say that Princess Diana was able to get involved with the royal family. She married Prince Charles. She got involved in the institution. She became part of the institution. And in the process, she had a huge influence on it, for better or for worse. She certainly had a genetic influence through her offspring. But the whole way the royal family was perhaps perceived was changed by her presence. And it's, even though she's been dead for, 26 years, we're still living with her influence. So that was how she influenced a big institution. So Victoria Nuland has come in, infiltrated herself into maybe the State Department and the highest bodies of the United States, and has had an influence on its policy in regards to Ukraine. Of course, she is not the only one. Her boss, Antony Blinken, likewise, has a view on the Ukraine. Wants to get involved in it. As far as Antony Blinken's horoscope is concerned, here's his chart. He's Antony Blinken, Secretary of State. He's got Sun in Aries. Sun in Aries wants to take the initiative, wants action, but I think there's certainly a current problem for him here, because we want to look at what's happening at the moment. Neptune is at around 27 Pisces. So Antony Blinken has got Neptune exactly on his Mars. So Mars is, aggression. But when you've got Neptune on your Mars, you might get confused. You might get the wrong idea about what's actually going on the ground. And, Antony Blinken has said some very optimistic things about the way the war in Ukraine is going for the United States. Effectively, it is the United States against Russia, isn't it? Ukraine is just sort of in the middle. But he may be deluding himself with Neptune on his Mars and making the wrong decisions. And another thing about Antony Blinken's chart is his Mercury. Antony Blinken has got Mercury conjunct the Sun. So Mercury is the way you make decisions. But when it's conjunct the Sun, it's combust. It's short-circuited by the Sun. So he's so into his own ideas, his own taking the initiative and all of this kind of stuff, that he's blinded. And so I think we have evidence here that at the moment, that America's foreign policy is run by someone who doesn't fully know what's going on, even though he's incredibly intelligent, gone to the best universities, all this kind of stuff. In terms of Ukraine, he has got a big problem there. So this Mars thing does matter, and with Victoria Nuland, going back to Victoria Nuland's chart, she's got Mars at 1 Virgo, and it's conjunct Pluto. So that's her regression, Mars in Virgo, and she's actually got Mars kind of on the Pluto North Node midpoint. Remember, Ebertin talks about Pluto and the nodes about being, the destiny of a large group of people. So she's got Mars on the Pluto node midpoint. So the way she asserts herself, the way she says stuff like fuck the EU, that has an impact on a lot of people. To give you another illustration of her assertiveness, the way she expresses herself in a rather, I think, unfortunate way. When the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was blown up, almost certainly by the United States, she made the remark, and she said, publicly, I am, and I think the administration is, very gratified to know that Nord Stream 2 is now a hunk of metal at the bottom of the sea. This is someone who is number 2 in the State Department, I think, after Blinken. I may have got that wrong. I think, she's really at the top. She's coming up with these kind of statements. And so this is dangerous. So with this Mars in Virgo, where is this Mars in Virgo actually going? Well, it's going into Ukraine, isn't it? It's 2014. She stirred it all up. So let's have a look at Ukraine's horoscope. Again, I've shown you this horoscope before. It got its independence. It declared its independence on August the 24th, 1991. And look where Ukraine's sun is. Ukraine has its sun at 0 Virgo, pretty much at the same place as Victoria Nuland's Mars. So her Mars is being poured into Ukraine, and this is where her energy goes. As soon as she came across Ukraine, she just she really could not help herself. And another thing to point out is Victoria Nuland's Jupiter. She's got her Jupiter at 5 Aquarius, and so there's and so we see that Zelensky, the where's he gone? Yeah, Vladimir Zelensky has got a Sun-Venus conjunction at 5 Aquarius. So Nuland's Jupiter is exactly on his Sun-Venus conjunction. So that means that she can really encourage him to do whatever he's doing, and there's a natural rapport, I would guess, between Zelensky and Victoria Nuland. Somehow she is helping him achieve whatever he wants to achieve, and maybe she makes him feel good about himself. I don't know, but there's certainly a link there, and this link may have been developing, for all I know, throughout his presidency. Another person who, another Ukrainian is, as I mentioned him, he is the General Siersky. He was actually born in Russia. The fact that you've got a general, Ukrainian general, top Ukrainian general born in Russia, just shows that this is not, it's not just a war between two completely independent countries. It does have elements of a civil war, and so this is his chart. He is now that's actually his solar arc direction. So sorry, that's his chart. So he is a Leo, Siersky, with a lot of stuff in Virgo. Indeed, he's got Venus at 0.55 Virgo. So that sort of adds to this impression that this 0 Virgo position is really important. Venus is obviously the way he relates. He's a general in a country that has its sun on his Venus, so it's kind of not surprising that that in terms of his loyalties are concerned, that he chose Ukraine over Russia. I mean, I don't know anything about his career, but presumably he had a choice at some stage. He could have become a general in a soldier in the Russian army, but that connection with Ukraine would have really made Ukraine feel more comfortable to him. And I wonder what contact he has with Victoria Nuland. Is she in contact with him? Because her Mars is on his Venus, so that could be a very important contact. As far as progressions are concerned, I did notice that there are two things about Siersky's chart. I just wanted to show you Siersky's solar arc direction. So I did a solar arc direction for today, and so there are two things I noticed. So let's put one inside the other. So here's this guy, really important for Ukraine's war effort, and we see that his sun. His progressed sun is just about to progress into Libra. That may not be fortunate because Libra, the sun is in its detriment in Libra. So I'm not convinced that is fortunate. I don't have his time of birth. that progression is going to happen probably in the next year, could be 6 months, something like that. So that's happening over the year. So that may not be a fortunate changeover. Another thing going on is the solar arc directed Neptune is I make it 1314 Capricorn. We don't know his time of birth. And his Mars is at 1447 Libra. So over the next year or two, his solar arc directed Neptune is moving to a square of his Mars. So, if this war carries on for much longer, he's going to be starting to feel the impact of Neptune square his Mars. I've already mentioned that Blinken has got Neptune conjunct his, transiting Neptune conjunct his Mars, and it seems that Siersky has got Neptune Mars issues. So that's certainly something to consider. As far as the solar arc directions for Blinken are concerned, so let's just quickly go back to Blinken's chart. So there's Blinken's chart. And I've already said that I'm just concerned about his general ability to understand what's going on with this Sun-Mercury conjunction. He's just not, he may be very clever, but there's some there's some sense in which he's confused. And as far as Blinken's solar arc directions are concerned, again, I've set them for today. So if we do this side by side, I don't have a time of birth for Blinken, but you can see that there is Blinken's Mercury and his Sun-Mercury conjunction, 26, 13, 14, around 26. And solar arc directed Uranus is at 2538 Libra. So solar arc directed Uranus over the next few months, it's probably already starting, is hitting his Sun-Mercury conjunction by opposition. And this might be a shock or a surprise coming up, something quite overwhelming potentially. Maybe Blinken doesn't fully get what's going on in Ukraine, and maybe when the situation collapses for Ukraine, it will be a big shock for him. So that's something to consider. So I don't think things look particularly great there. I was also, one of my commenters wanted me to quickly look at Lindsey Graham's chart. Lindsey Graham, the senator for South Carolina, remember he was the one who said he talked about killing Russians with some enthusiasm. So Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Graham's chart. Yeah, here we are. Lindsey Graham's chart. Huge Cancer. He's got Venus at 2 Cancer, Sun at 16 Cancer, Uranus at 27 Cancer, Mars at 28 Cancer. I believe he was a colonel in the US Army. He has a Mars-Uranus conjunction in Cancer. So I don't know. That seems that war may and war and violence and the machinery of violence and death with that Mars-Uranus conjunction may turn him on. I mean, perhaps that was a reason why he made his remark about killing Russians. So that's one point. The United States is a Cancerian country, and so this man, Lindsey Graham, with all that sun in Cancer, he was born pretty close to July the 4th. So people born in America around July the 4th got a special connection with the country. So that must have helped him in terms of his political career. So those are a few thoughts about Lindsey Graham. Again, I don't have a time of birth, so it's difficult to be too sure what's going on. I should point out that he has got no Earth in his chart. So someone with no Earth may have all these fantasies about war and fighting Russians and all this without actually thinking about what the reality of that actually is, like, nuclear war, that kind of thing. Um, I don't think his constituents in South Carolina would be so pleased if some military base got a nuclear weapon dropped on it, and thousands of American soldiers and even civilians got killed. But there's a certain lack of grounding here, perhaps, in his enthusiasm for the war in Ukraine. Also, Lindsey Graham has Mars square Neptune in his natal chart, so maybe he kind of gets the wrong idea about what you can actually do with military power. So that is something to consider. Now, going back to the Aries point. Sorry, not the Aries point, the 0 degrees Virgo. There's another chart I want to look at. Again, chart that I've looked at before. This chart is the ratification of NATO, August the 24th, 1949. So this is when NATO came into being, August the 24th, 1949. Same date, different year that that Ukraine declared its independence. So we've got this sun in Virgo coming up again. So we're seeing it all over the place. We've got sun in Virgo in a NATO ratification chart, sun in Virgo Ukraine chart. We've got Venus at, it's not just sun in Virgo, we've got sun at 1-2 early Virgo in NATO ratification chart, in Ukraine chart. We've got General Siersky, he's got Venus at 1 Virgo, and we've got Victoria Nuland, her Mars is at 1 Virgo, and when you had that NATO conference in Vilnius, you had when's that, a few weeks ago, I believe Mars was at 1 Virgo as well. So this 1 Virgo is really, really, really important, and it's something we really have to think about. So what's happening in the skies is that Saturn is now retrograde. I mean, if we look at, if we look at today's astrology, you can see that Saturn is at 548 Pisces. So, but it's going to go backwards, and it keeps going backwards over the next few months, and it actually comes to a standstill, going stationary direct at 0 degrees Pisces at the beginning of November. So in the autumn, towards beginning of November, Saturn is going to be opposition Victoria Nuland's Mars. Saturn is going to be opposition NATO's Sun. Saturn is going to be opposition Ukraine's Sun. Saturn is going to be opposition General Siersky's Venus. Saturn is going to be opposition the position of Mars at the beginning of the Vilnius conference a few weeks ago. So I'm thinking maybe that's going to be the moment. That's going to be the moment, perhaps, when all these people realize that it's game over, that all this stuff about defeating Russia and so forth is just a fantasy, and Saturn is going to be about the reality of the fact that Russia, in many respects, has I don't know, I'm not going to say won its war, because there's a lot to play out. Incidentally, 80 years ago, we talked about August the 24th as the chart of Ukraine and NATO. I think it was August the 26th, 1943, was the beginning of the Battle of the Dnieper, when the Soviets were able to throw the Nazis out of all the area. I think on one side of the Dnieper, and that's exactly what's happening now. The Dnieper is this Dnieper is that big river in Ukraine. So I think in the Battle of Dnieper, they were able to throw the Nazis out of that whole area east of the Dnieper. And so 80 years ago, end of August, and I think it was a long battle lasting a few months. So maybe history is going to kind of repeat again in that part of Ukraine. But that's just maybe it's just a coincidence. So I've looked at a few charts. I hope you've found that interesting, and I hope you're not too annoyed. I mean, I have my view on the subject, which I know not everyone's going to agree with, but I do think that the astrology does suggest, with this link, this zero Virgo coming up again and again, I think the astrology suggests that that the autumn, running into moving into this period in early November, when Saturn stations opposition all those 0 degrees Virgo points, that could be the moment when the penny drops, when all these people realize that it just isn't going to plan. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.